Good morning, afternoon, or evening, wherever you may be watching us from. It is my pleasure to welcome you to this edition of the News in English. My name is Sarah Shinhori. Let us begin with the headlines. Prime Minister Justin Nsengiyumva has stated that Rwanda is ready to further strengthen cooperation with Lesotho. Rwanda and the DRC have signed an agreement on the voluntary repatriation of refugees. And on the international scene, Keir Starmer has resigned from his position as Prime Minister of the United Kingdom. Now straight to the details. The Prime Minister of Rwanda, Dr. Justin Nsengiyumva, on Monday virtually addressed the opening of the Lesotho National Leadership Forum, a high-level gathering focused on strengthening leadership and governance. The forum was officiated by Lesotho's Prime Minister, the Honorable Samuel Matekane. Enora Gladys reports.
Addressing leaders and policymakers, Prime Minister Dr. Justin Nsengiyumva shared Rwanda's experience in governance, national transformation, and institution building, highlighting lessons that have shaped the country's development journey. He also emphasized the growing partnership between Rwanda and Lesotho, noting that continued exchanges between the two countries are helping to strengthen cooperation and promote mutual learning.
When Rwanda reflects on its journey, we do so with humility, recognizing that every country has its own context and no model is universally transferable. When Rwanda emerged from the genocide against the Tutsi in 1994, the country faced immense challenges. Institutions had collapsed, the economy was devastated, and the communities carried deep trauma. Yet, even in those difficult circumstances, one thing remained within our control, and that is the choices we made about the future. Under the leadership of His Excellency President Paul Kagame, Rwanda made a defining decision. We would not allow our circumstances to define the limits of our ambitions.
The Prime Minister encouraged participants to draw lessons from Rwanda's experience, particularly how the country transformed its available resources to meet its development needs and rebuild following the 1994 genocide against the Tutsi.
The second lesson is learning to turn what you have into what you need. Following the genocide against the Tutsi, Rwanda faced another challenge beyond reconstruction. Much of the world knew Rwanda only through the lenses of tragedy. The question before us was how to build a different future and a different narrative. Rather than focusing on what we lacked, we asked ourselves a different question. What strengths do we possess, and how can we build on them? We invested in our natural assets, our safety, and our governance. We developed the tourism and invested in MICE infrastructure, not simply to attract visitors, but to reposition Rwanda as a country where people could invest, innovate, do business, and engage with a modern and forward-looking Africa. In doing so, we sought to move from being defined by our tragedy to being recognized for our resilience, our ambition, and opportunity.
Prime Minister Dr. Justin Nsengiyumva also highlighted the importance of Africans having confidence in their own potential, noting that the continent is richly endowed with resources and opportunities for growth and development.
Let me also emphasize that as Africans, we must have confidence in our own potential. Our continent is richly endowed with talent, resources, and opportunity. What determines our success is not the absence of potential, but the presence of leadership that unites people and mobilizes those resources around a shared vision. Partnerships will remain important, but Africa's future will be shaped by what we do with what is already within our reach.
The Prime Minister said leadership forums such as this provide valuable opportunities for African nations to learn from one another and accelerate development through effective governance. The Lesotho National Leadership Forum brings together government leaders, policymakers, and other stakeholders to discuss strategies for national development and improved public service delivery. Enora Gladys, RwandaTV News.
The governments of the Democratic Republic of the Congo and Rwanda, together with the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees, have concluded a high-level ministerial meeting in, in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia, focused on the voluntary repatriation of refugees. The meeting builds on the 2010 tripartite agreements and ongoing regional efforts aimed at finding durable solutions for displaced populations. It also comes in the context of recent diplomatic progress, including the 2025 Peace and Prosperity Accords signed in Washington, D.C. Enora Gladys continues.
The three parties adopted a 2026-2027 roadmap outlining steps for the voluntary return and reintegration of refugees, including clear timelines, coordination mechanisms, and monitoring frameworks. They noted that both countries continue to host significant refugee populations, with the DRC hosting over 196,000 Rwandan refugees and asylum seekers, while Rwanda hosts more than 84,000 Congolese refugees and asylum seekers. The meeting also acknowledged progress in voluntary repatriation from the DRC to Rwanda, with more than 8,000 people returning safely since January 2025. Officials agreed to strengthen coordination through quarterly technical meetings and the use of designated border points to facilitate safe and dignified returns. However, political analyst Maître Gasominari Jean-Baptiste says questions remain regarding implementation and the accuracy of refugee data.
Well, in my understanding, this agreement is as important as the previous agreements that have been signed between both parties, but unfortunately, which were never implemented. So I understand that this agreement will be like the previous if there is no political will to implement it. Otherwise, meeting together, discussing a very important issue like repatriating refugees from both countries is a very good sign. It's a very good act as far as both parties are concerned. But if they do not implement it, then it will be like more or less like the previous agreements that were never implemented.
He also raises concerns about the registration and classification of Rwandan refugees in the DRC, noting that all refugees are expected to be registered under the UNHCR systems.
My first question that I may put is, if there are some who are not registered, how do they know that they are Rwandan refugees? Because to be recognized as such, you need to have been registered by the competent authority. We all know that refugees are normally under the care of United Nations. It's a specialized agency that protects refugees, which is the United Nations High Commission for Refugees. So if those people were not registered by the UNHCR, if they were not registered by the government of DRC, then how do they know that they are Rwandan refugees? Everyone may be tempted to say that, well, it's a figure that was brought forward, but it's a figure that has no significance, because when you are a foreigner in a country, you either an asylum seeker that has applied for it, or you are a refugee recognized as such, you have been given that status. So if those people are not registered, then how do they know that they are Rwandan refugees? They may be Zambians, refugees, or Burundians, or Ugandan, because all those countries are countries that bordering DRC.
The analyst further points to what he describes as logistical challenges in South Kivu, in light of the fact that there are no structured refugee camps in the region, but apparently refugees.
I think it's also it's another issue that brings about dilemma. When you are a refugee in a foreign land, as I said before, you are registered and you are under the care of UNHCR. You are either put in a refugee camp, and it's a recognized area where refugees are hosted, or you live in a city. You have opted for that because you maybe have some means for survival. You can survive on your own without depending on UNHCR, getting other means for you to survive where you are. But if in South Kivu there is no recognized refugee camp, then where were those people living? And how were they called refugees or Rwandan refugees if they were not living in a refugee camp, a recognized one, if they were not hosted by Congolese who were authorized to do so? Having refugees in South Kivu is not a problem because it's a province that neighbors Rwanda, so people can cross into South Kivu. But the fact that you have this big number of people in a province where there is no refugee camp, no recognized refugee camp, I think it's also confusing and calls for scrutiny.
The tripartite parties reaffirmed their commitment to voluntary, safe and dignified repatriation and agreed to hold the next ministerial meeting in 2027 with the exact date and venue to be communicated through diplomatic channels. The government of Ethiopia was commended for hosting the meeting, while UNHCR was recognized for its continued humanitarian coordination role. The agreement marks another step in regional cooperation aimed at addressing long-standing displacement challenges in the Great Lakes region. Enora Gladys, RwandaTV News.
Rwanda's Minister of Foreign Affairs and International Cooperation, Ambassador Olivier Nduhungirehe, has emphasized that cooperation among developing countries is one of the key foundations upon which self-reliance and sustainable development can be built. He made the remarks on Monday while opening a two-day conference on South-South and Triangular Cooperation, which focuses on international partnerships aimed at promoting development in developing countries. Adam Squizera reports.
During visits to Rwanda by delegations from various countries, many have underscored that cooperation between nations yields tangible results across different sectors, including knowledge sharing. The outcomes of such cooperation are among the key topics being discussed at the two-day conference taking place in Kigali on development of developing countries through South-to-South and Triangular Cooperation. According to Fatmata Loveta Sesei, the resident representative of the United Nations Development Programme in Rwanda, this form of cooperation is essential for countries seeking to strengthen their economies and identify homegrown solutions to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals.
And I think this is really an important conversation because at the heart of South-South cooperation is the equality and understanding of the fact that all countries have something to share and all countries have something to learn from each other. And once they do, where UNDP comes in is really facilitating for that sharing to happen, but most importantly is what happens after the sharing of knowledge happens. When delegations go back or partnerships have been signed, documents have been signed, the follow-up to ensure that countries adopt, they adapt, and they take to scale what they have learned is really where UNDP comes in. But also important is the institutions that allow and facilitate for this to happen.
In 2018, the government of Rwanda established the Rwanda Cooperation Initiative, an institution tasked with promoting Rwanda's homegrown solutions and innovations. Over the past 7 years, the institution has facilitated the transfer of 5 technological projects to different countries across the African continent. CEO Richard Niyonshuti explains that the impact of the institutions in strengthening Rwanda's cooperation with other developing countries is reflected in the fact that several countries have begun adopting some of Rwanda's successful homegrown initiatives and development programs.
Are taking another steps toward the dream that generations before us imagined, a world where countries of the global south are not mere participants in the development, but architects. South-South cooperation is built on the principle that developing countries possess valuable knowledge, expertise, technologies, experiences that can be shared for mutual benefit. It is a partnership based on solidarity, equality, respect, and shared prosperity rather than dependence. In 2018, 7 years ago, the government of Rwanda established Rwanda Cooperation Initiative, a platform to coordinate and support knowledge exchange and share Rwanda's transformation journey with the global south. Over these years, we have welcomed and hosted delegations that have come to benchmark on Rwanda's 32 years of experience.
Minister Olivier Nduhungirehe noted that Africa's economic potential and its natural resources should be leveraged more effectively through strong cooperation among countries on the continent.
What remains is the harder work, building the institutional frameworks, financing mechanisms, and accountability structures that allow this cooperation to deliver consistently and at scale. Excellencies, Rwanda comes to this conversation not as a theorist, but as a practitioner. 3 decades ago, our country faced what many considered as an impossible task of national reconstruction. Today, Rwanda is often cited internationally for its governance reforms, its investments in digital public service delivery, its community-based health financing, and its homegrown solutions to socio-economic challenges from Umuganda to Imihigo to Girinka, as Fatmata mentioned.
These efforts further demonstrate the progress Rwanda has made in developing homegrown solutions and become one of Africa's leading model countries. Statistics from the Rwanda Cooperation Initiative show that since 2018, Rwanda has hosted more than 10,000 visitors from 80 countries. This included 260 delegations from West Africa, 238 delegations from East Africa, 61 from Southern Africa, and 55 from Central Africa. Adam Squizera, RwandaTV News.
As African countries increasingly look to one another for practical and affordable development solutions, Rwanda's digital expertise is attracting growing interest across the continent. On the sidelines of the inaugural convention on South-South and Triangular Cooperation here in Kigali, an official from Eswatini's Ministry of Finance spoke exclusively to RBA's William Evans Mutabazi about how Rwanda is helping transform her country's public finance systems. Take a look.
Conversations have been happening around South-South and Triangular Cooperation, of course bringing different delegates from all over Africa, but also from South-South countries. Of course, now seated with me is a delegate from Eswatini, from the Ministry of Finance, and we want to hear from some of these solutions that have been exported to Eswatini that are really, working, and what she makes of the conversation that just happened right here. Many thanks, and thank you for speaking to us.
Thank you so much. Thank you for hosting me and for welcoming me here. My name is Tulisile Dlamini from the Ministry of Finance in Eswatini. I'm under the Public Finance Management Unit, who is implementing the IFMIS, which is Integrated Financial Management and Information System. So we have the South-South cooperation with Rwanda from December 2022. So essentially Rwanda is leading in our implementation in the IFMIS, in the EGP, which is Electronic Government Procurement. There is the two contracts that we have with them presently. I can safely tell you, we couldn't have done it otherwise. Remember, we had started as a country beyond coming here. We had started before with an off-the-shelf, trying to make sure that we implement an off-the-shelf. And we saw that this won't help us. Now we want an in-house. And we then had to transport what the solution from Rwanda to our country. Not necessarily the whole solution. The ERP is theirs, but essentially we are the ones who are talking to our business processes. That's the agility. They've been talking to the agile approach, and indeed they live up to it. We've experienced the agile approach. We gave them systems requirements in the very beginning, but ever since they came, we've been changing just to make sure that we customize it to our own context. As the technology is here, but there is a lot, the actual broader funding, which is human resource, the right human resource, right skilling, because one of the products of this is not only the technology, it's also hand-holding, being hand-held. That's what they are doing with us. They are hand-holding us. They want, after the cooperation, we have to continue as a Swatini on our own after the 4 years. So that's what they have to do. But that is dependent on the Emaswati back home, who are you willing to be handheld? So that is where we saw that this is a gap, and we are revising how best we can put everyone on board. It's one of the reasons after this mission, after these two, we have to meet with Rwanda just to look into that. How best are we doing that? And when we go back to Eswatini on Friday, we continue. Essentially, we have really seen that this South-South cooperation is compared to just a contract with the private sector. This one is the best that we could have done. The price escalation would have been worse if it was just the way we've changed a lot of things.
I was actually coming to I mean, in terms of the cost, now that you're coming from the Ministry of Finance, how cost-effective are South-South and triangular cooperation initiatives?
Thank you for that question. It's very essential to promote this, because this is very key for most countries if they can take this route. What I've noticed, like I'm saying, before we came to Rwanda, we had started this. We had a tender process that had been done, trying to procure off the shelf. I cannot speak to the exact price here, but the price that we got from those as compared to what we got in Rwanda is totally different. This is very, very low and minimal and affordable. As a result, we have not asked for any grant on the development. We have not asked for any loan as a country. It's just local funds. Truth be told is when we maybe want the quality assurance, the AFDP is coming to just to check if they are implementing the right thing. But the actual implementation is done by is paid from the local funds. So it is cost effective. Cost effective in the fact that man hours. When you look at a project, you talk to man hours, specific man hours. But here they are over and above what you thought of in the beginning. It's literally government to government. When they're in the country, they're like government officials. They do things beyond, over and above what any other normal company could do. Because a company is just according to your plan, but this is over and above. So it's cost effective in terms of that. Skill, the skill transfer, you find that because you end up being in the same office. You're literally there in a Swatini government somehow in the meantime. So we are working with them, relations, there are a lot of other ripple effects, other benefits as a result of this cooperation. And it goes beyond what we knew we were signing up for. We are really enjoying the cooperation, and we are, in fact, even the patience that you cannot get from a company, because a company, there are deliverables, there are time frames, and the end of story. Here you extend, you sit down, you redo. Even when you increase the scope, you can renegotiate even the pricing. It is not escalating. Remember, they are getting their salaries in the country, and whatever benefit that they get, maybe as an allowance. So that is not put on us. It's just only the allowance part that is put on the country that they are going to help. So essentially, I've noted that it's a good. It's a good platform that we have gone to, and also it's a good. It's a decision that the government made, which is good. remember with the off-the-shelf, you don't have the source code. Here we will have the source code. They're delivering and leaving everything with Eswatini. In terms of many other licenses that you've been paying, it's minimal when it comes to you dealing with Rwanda. Why are we able to compare? We've started that journey before coming here. Then we disbanded that journey to come to Rwanda, and it's clear benefits. And it's cost effective, really cost effective, and it gives you benefits beyond just costs. Even the human element. Right now, when you come here, you are like home. And even Eswatini, the rest of Eswatini, when they come here, they are like home. You've created that, and it goes beyond. Now there are many other products that Eswatini wants from Rwanda as a result of this relationship. So even Eswatini, because we are like now a mirror, will be a mirror of what Rwanda is doing. The country itself will benefit in the near future. Other countries, already they are interested in coming to Eswatini because we have a relationship with Rwanda. So it's a broader benefit over and above what you could get from just off the shelf.
BPR Bank Rwanda PLC has officially launched a process for buying and selling shares among its shareholders within the country. The bank has also reminded those who have not yet registered to do so in order to ensure the smooth running of the process. And Nora Gladys with the details.
BPR Bank Rwanda PLC, in partnership with BK Capital as the intermediary for the share trading process, explained that shareholders wishing to sell their shares must first register and complete the required forms. Those wishing to buy shares must already be registered shareholders. The representative of Rwandan shareholders on the bank's board of directors, Pascal Nyiringango, say the initiative will increase opportunities for shareholders.
During the transaction of merger, this is a clause which is there and we cannot violate. That's one. Two, this is not permanent. We are resolving the legacy issues. As my colleague said, it will get to a point where the members will sit and agree in the shareholders' general meeting. That's where the final, any matters related to shareholders are transacted and approved by AGM, whether ordinary or extraordinary. So this will lead to a process that resolves the legacy issues urgently, but then we shall have to sit again and revisit some, emerging issues to make sure no one goes away complaining. Every issue will be resolved, but we need to be binded by the shareholding agreement entirely, which actually binds everyone when it comes to shareholders. So we are not restricting per se, we are binded by the shareholding agreement. During the merger, we signed something which is guiding the process, and that's what we are trying to do.
The Chief Executive Officer of BPR Bank Rwanda, Patience Mutesi, said the initiative is aimed at facilitating shareholders to buy or sell their shares in a safe and secure manner.
For shareholders who are frustrated because they were not receiving a dividend since the bank became a commercial bank in 2007. Let me just take you back to history that the bank became a commercial bank in 2007, and since 2007, no shareholder had received a dividend because of the non-profitability of the bank. Since the merger, the bank has been making a profit, and I'm glad to let the citizens know and the shareholders know that for the financial year 2024, we gave a dividend, and then in May, when our annual general meeting was held, we also had an approval to pay another dividend for the second year in a row. And so that was the fourth step. But then we were still left with shareholders who had a frustration to say, for those who would like to sell their shares, or for those who want to buy more shares, how can we do this? And so we partnered with BK Capital. We onboarded the services of BK Capital as a broker. BK Capital's role is going to be to provide a system that is seamless, that is transparent, and is efficient so that it can facilitate the buying and selling of shares, primarily amongst our minority shareholders. This platform has been restricted to current shareholders of the bank. So it's not yet open to the population. That's because we want to give our shareholders number one priority to increase their shareholding. And so at a later stage, should there be a situation where maybe there are no interested buyers, we might open it up to the majority shareholder or to other citizens of Rwanda.
BPR Bank Rwanda states that the nominal value of one share is 1,000 Rwandan francs. However, the valuation has placed the share price between 2,371 and 2,906 Rwandan francs. Excluding a 10% capital gains tax, a shareholder wishing to sell shares will choose a price within that range, although they may also request BK Capital to determine the best price based on offers from potential buyers. Enra Gladys, RwandaTV News.
That's it from me, at least for now. I'll join Martina Abera for the next edition. Until I see you again, it's goodbye.